All right, so let's jump straight into this. Last time we discussed the web development process, right? We went kind of step by step. You shared the screen and showed me the details for the project, including like all the phases. We discussed all of that. So this time, what I did is I took all of that information and I tried to build ClickUp structure so that we could answer the four main questions. And the four main questions are basically the ones that we discussed last time. These are the four levels of control for us, or four levels of how we want to break down things in ClickUp and what do we want to manage in ClickUp. The number one that I focused on is just kind of want to give you a little bit more context, and then we dive into the structures. So basically the four levels. The first one, how do we track all the web development projects overall for the agency, right? Like how you as an agency owner can see all this. The second one was, how do we track, not only see all the projects, but how do we see the phases for those projects and where one starts, where the other ends, to see the timeline and for you to be able to manage that. The third one is kind of, as we go level deeper, is how do we track all the website pages? Because again, we discussed last time, we do some of the phases, I think it was wireframe design, development per page. So we would love to know how, like, where are we standing with each single page, right? So like where everything's going. And the fourth is kind of the very, I think about it this way, at the very bottom of the, not of the hierarchy, but the very last level that we want to track in ClickUp is the actual admin tasks. And this is what basically our current structure does, is tracks a lot of admin tasks without having that visibility into like overall what's going on. So these are the four things. I'm going to dive into the structure. So what I also did is I put together this diagram, which is like a process diagram. I didn't want to overcomplicate it, so I don't think we even need to go through this in very detail. This basically outlines what we discussed on the call in terms of all the phases with like client onboarding and admin setup, the design prep, competitor research. Again, I might have named the phases differently from what you had, but again, it's not like at this point of time, it's not a big deal. We also have the wireframe design, the website design, the development, and the launch. I'm going to share this again. That's going to be the part of the final deliverable, so you can also see this process in more detail. But let me start with this. So basically, as I outlined the process, and as we discussed it last time, I started thinking, what are all the things that we want to track in ClickUp? And these are, again, what I mentioned at the beginning, but I also listed them here. So we have our web projects, which again will give us the high-level overview of what's going on. We also want to track all the web pages as they go through, and you can see over here the different stages of the process, like the backlog, in progress, internal review, all that stuff. Then we have our project phases, which again, kind of the same as the web projects, but I still separated it. And I'm going to show you different versions of how we can approach this in ClickUp. And we have obviously the admin tasks, which we're tracking right now, which are all the things that need to get done, like get access and all that stuff. And then the very last piece is the Feedbucket revisions, which I think is very specific to how you do things and like how you synchronize ClickUp and use that integration. So I also included it here to make sure we put it in the structure. All right, so the first version, and I put together two different versions. I'm going to explain the reasoning behind that after we review the first one. But basically, I try to keep the structure similar to what you have right now, so there is not a dramatic change when we roll this out. Again, you don't get lost in all the new things that we build in ClickUp. So it's quite similar to what you have, but slightly with kind of different, with different main idea behind this. So. All right, let me jump straight into this. So we're gonna review the first one, and I will start here. I'll go through each of these questions that I mentioned at the beginning, just to make it easier for us to review the structure, because there is a lot of pieces, and I don't want it to be overwhelming, but at the same time, I want you to understand like where I'm coming from and what this is all about. So let's start with the first one. The first question I had was, how do we track web development projects high level? How do we know how many projects we have at all overall? How do we know what are the stages for each of these projects? And again, in the previous structure, we did not have like a separate record that would represent a website project itself. We would have a project, but it was not like a separate record. So in this example, what it does is, and this looks again similar to the client space that you have right now, where you have different client folders for each client. I added two lists in here just like as an idea. I know you don't have them. Maybe you don't have them right now. I don't remember exactly. But the first one is basically all the admin tasks for your clients, again, which, pop up like you need to follow up with the client, do this, do that, which is not related necessarily to the website project. Because again, remember at this point, we're only looking at the website development or web development. In the future, you also want to include here the SEO services and the rest of the services that you provide. So again, that's going to expand. So over here, the admin is just all the tasks for that client and not related to a project that you have listed here. The other one is the client form submissions. I included it here. Again, this is just an idea. I wanted to share this with you. This is back to what you mentioned last time, where people or clients submit forms from your website, and then you want to store that information in ClickUp. What I would do, I would not try to put it anywhere in a list, for example, for admin tasks, or try to put it in the list description. I would have a dedicated place where those submissions would be stored, so that again, you can take information from there. A very good idea kind of for the future reference for us is to build some sort of automation that will connect that form with ClickUp, so you don't need to copy paste that information manually. So the form gets submitted on the website, it comes straight into this list, whether it's a client onboarding form, it can be a website form, and then all the answers that you have had, all the answers that client provided are also recorded here in this ClickUp record. Okay. So that's kind of the idea. For now, it's just again, there's no automation behind this, just a manual list, but for the future reference, I think it's going to be helpful. So back to the question of how do we now see all the web development projects for the client. So in this example, we're going to have a separate list, which basically represents the website project. It's called website development. Again, you can imagine we have two clients here, client 1, client 2. Each one of them is going to have a separate list for website development, which is kind of like a separate line of service that you provide. And as part of that, you have a website project as a separate task. So what this does is allows us, and I'm actually going to start with the version 2, because this is going to show you a little bit better. Better just give me one sec. Because what this does is when we have a separate task for our website project, it allows us to track different stages for that project much more easily than if we were to have phases broken down like we had previously as separate tasks. I'm not sure why it doesn't want to click here. Okay, let me show you this one. So obviously, again, most of the time, probably you have not more than one website project per client, right? So the downside of this, of tracking it this way, is that it's just going to be one task per list. But what it does is it allows you to track different stages for that website project. So again, answering the first question, this website task is going to go through all the stages of the web development lifecycle that we have in place. It's going to go through client onboarding, discovery and research, design, development. And this task has to be obviously managed throughout the process and updated throughout the process. But if you do this, the nice thing is, again, you have a very nice overview of what's going on for the project. So again, you can see where it stands in the process. And again, this view just shows you one task for one website per client. If you were to see all the tasks or all the website projects for all the clients, we could just look at the space level here. Let me just see, maybe it works like this. And over here, again, I only have 2 clients, but it doesn't look much very impressive. But still, here you can see that there are website project 1, website project 2. If you have 5 of them, again, they're going to be broken down for different phases. You're going to see where those projects stand. So this is a very, very high-level overview. At this point, it doesn't give you details into different phases for those projects, right? So again, that's the version 1. Okay. All right. So now the version 2, how we can track these overall website projects per client. I have it actually under version 1 here. It's having a separate task for a website project, but then also tracking the phases for that project as subtasks in here. Again, it's a little bit, it might be a little bit confusing because if we do it this way, the statuses will have to be the same for the main task and for the subtask. If you remember last time I mentioned, that's kind of one of the main reasons I don't really like subtasks. But if we do it this way, what I found when we create a big view for all the projects for the agency, we'll be able to have something like this, which basically shows you all the projects with the phases inside those projects broken down on the time, or it's Gantt view in this example. Yeah, and again, this thing assumes that we are updating this phases and this website task as we're going through the website project, because at this point, this serves as the high-level overview. It doesn't serve for people to tell people actually what needs to happen, or what step we're at. Again, this is just a very high overview. So if we were to go this way, like this, would have to, again, every time the phase ends, and I think that was the question you had last time, where you mentioned that you're including the dates in the contract for different phases. So again, this can be like a management part of the structure where you can set this up yourself, and or someone from the project management team, and then again, just as the phase completes, you just move it to complete or done. If the due date changes, you update the due date here for the phase. But again, that's let me know so far if it makes sense. If any questions, maybe.
No, it makes sense. Yeah, it looks good.
All right. So that's, but again, that answers only one question, which is how do we track the high-level website projects? It kind of touches on the second question, which is how do we track all the phases for this project with this structure? But now let's move on to the second, which is how do we track all the phases? And again, it really depends if we go with the version 2. This is why I wanted to break it down by question, because otherwise it becomes like a little bit overcomplicated. Because if we decide to track the stages inside the tasks, like we saw here, then there will be no no reason, but there will be no need for us to track those phases separately in the next space where we track different web projects per folder. So again, really depends. But let me show you an example of how we can track phases as a separate web project in a separate space. Right now we have space, which is, again, I remember you called it projects. We can call them web projects, just to make it a little bit easier to understand what's inside. And then here, every single folder, which you currently have, is a separate web project, right? The lists that I have here are slightly different from the ones that you had inside the template. And let me show you what's different. So the first thing that we can see over here is how do we track all the project phases? As I said, if we were to track them together with the website folder, we don't really need to have a separate project phases list here. But if we were just to track a single website project task in the previous space here for the client, right, as just like the high level overview, here it might be a good idea to have different phases broken down as separate tasks, and have them stored in a separate list. So this way, your timeline essentially is not stored in the client space, it's stored under the specific project phase. And again, it works absolutely the same way. We have start date, due date. We can have a Gantt view that basically shows you all the phases per project in this example, right? So again, it's not very different. It's just the way the structure, the way it's structured is different in ClickUp. But overall, what you see and how you see it is going to be quite the same. Okay. So that's the version 1 of how do we track phases. Now, the second idea that I had was, because in the version that you have phases broken down into different tasks, and then inside those tasks you have subtasks as action items or admin tasks that need to complete, right, throughout each of these phases. So I was thinking maybe we can combine the two, and instead of having project phases as a completely separate list, we can just have them as project phases and admin tasks together, which basically shows you, again, the main task is going to be the project phase, right? It's going to have the start date, the due date. You're going to see it in the Gantt view. But when you open and you have all the subtasks, this one shows you the actual action items that need to happen for each of these phases. In the previous structure, the only difference here is in the previous structure, we had them broken down by list, because we had phase one client onboarding, phase 2 design, phase 3 development. Here, what I'm doing is I'm just saying, let's just put all the admin tasks into the same list, right? And again, just keep them like this. So we have the timeline in place and we can see how, again, what's the timeline for the project. So as we open each of these tasks, let me just see if I added a couple of bullet points I wanted to mention. Yep. So as we expand a couple of these phases, just to explain how this works, basically inside we have, I call them like big tasks. They're not small items which will take like 5-10 minutes to complete, but these are more like a generalized tasks that need to happen. For example, and I might not have created them perfectly in terms of the names, but here's like create the project in ClickUp, right? What does it mean? And then when this is like a big task, which can take hour, 2 hours. And what it means is we need to duplicate the website project template. We need to assign core owners. We need to set the target start and due date. So all these things that take 5 or like 1 to 10 minutes can be added as a checklist instead of having them as a separate task, which I think is kind of one of the improvements from the previous structure. Because if you remember last time we mentioned, when you have a lot of tasks, it becomes kind of a headache to update the statuses for each of these tasks, to update the due dates for each of those tasks. So the idea here is to minimize the number of tasks, but at the same time, again, keeping track of all of them as checklists inside kind of big chunks of work rather than breaking them down too granularly.
Nice.
So that's make sense?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So these are so now at this point, there's basically the 2 ways for us to track phases, or we can even say there are 3 ways, right? The first one, when we included it in the client space. The second option is just to have a separate list inside the project folder and just have it look like this, very similar to the previous example. And then the third option is to have project phases combined with the admin tasks and just have them all inside one list.
Okay.
So let me know if any questions at this point of time. I hope it's not too confusing, because again, I was trying to put multiple versions in the same structure, but let me know if you have questions.
Let's keep going, because I think a few of my questions will be answered as you walk through more of the steps here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this example, let's move on to the next kind of level that we want to track. So we discussed how we're tracking the overall web projects, right, and how they fit into the structure. Then we discussed the phases and how do we structure them inside ClickUp. The third one is how do we track the website pages, right? So it comes to the actual wireframe design and development stages of the project, where we're working per web page, where we're focusing on each single page, rather than, again, managing the project like as just one big chunk of work. So the website pages in this example, the way I kind of envision this is to have a separate list, which is can be called website pages. Again, it's part of the folder structure for the project. And then instead of creating them as you created them previously as subtasks inside the phase list, here we can create them as a separate task, which goes through different stages of the process. So these stages basically contain 3 phases of the process, which is like wireframe design development. And again, I broke them down like this. So you have for example, when you create the first web page, or you just create a web page task, it goes into backlog. After that, it goes into wireframe in progress. After that, it goes into wireframe internal review, client review. Then it moves on to the design phase, which is design in progress, design internal review, client review. And then it goes into the development, which is development in progress, development internal QA. And then I just named it client review because that's basically like the final revision of the client, right? And then again, as soon as the client gives you the green light, he says, this pages look good. You move them to ready for launch. And this becomes kind of the final checklist for you to launch the website. So like, okay, we move the task from ready to launch to live. This means as soon as we're done with all the pages, they're all live. It means we'll launch the website.
Okay.
So it's kind of the idea behind this. It's very similar to the way you move the subtask from one main task into the other main task. It's just like now, instead of having a task, we have a status here. Yes. But what this does is it allows us to track more details about the web page, because when you're creating a web page, and I just added a couple of examples, like two examples here. You might want to track a stage page URL or a live page URL. and again, this is not limited to this too, right? We can have more information stored in here. Maybe I don't know, there is a different custom field that want to add to track in website pages task here. It can be a link, it can be a drop down, maybe it's a document that we upload, maybe it's a Figma link. Again, that's the point. When you're putting this together, whoever starts working on this task can just open the web page task and easily see all the information that he or she needs to complete the work.
Perfect.
So that's the main idea, and that's kind of the main reason to break it down into a separate list. Because again, if we were to track them as subtasks, first of all, we will be limited to what statuses do we use, and second of all, we'll be limited to what custom fields we include there. Because if you apply the custom fields, they apply to all the tasks. I think actually ClickUp, because I received an email recently, they're going to be so there's like a task type. I'm not sure. Have you heard of task types in ClickUp? Yeah. So I think they're going to launch a feature which is custom fields per task type, which allows you to like filter out which custom fields you show or not. But at this point, again, we're kind of limited by that. So I feel like having a separate list might make more sense. So let me know if this part makes sense. If any questions here, maybe.
It definitely makes sense. I could see why you'd set it up this way. It's a lot more streamlined than what we had before.
All right. Sounds good. So, and again, for now, I'm just describing the structure. Obviously, we'll need to, like, after we go through this, we'll discuss how to make it like more aligned with the way you do work, because I know some of these things might not align. You might want to remove some of the statuses, like maybe change things, add custom fields, remove them. So that's going to be kind of the second part of this goal.
Makes sense.
All right, and the last point, which I mentioned was, so again, we have the website, overall website projects. We have the phases tracked in ClickUp. We also have the web pages that go through different stages. The last point is, how do we track the admin tasks? And this is kind of, I covered this already. We're gonna have very similar approach to what we had before, where we again group them as subtasks for different stages. The only difference, as I mentioned before, is now instead of breaking them down into like all the little things that we need to do into separate tasks, we'll try to group them into bigger buckets, bigger chunks of work that will become subtasks for the stage task. And then again, those small items that need to complete will become just a checklist inside the big chunk of work. So again, as I mentioned, let me just see if I have design. Yeah, okay, I didn't align didn't change these things here, but
that's great.
Yeah, it just like was a test version. So over here, an example, right? So wireframe environment setup, Figma, whatever. Create duplicate Figma project, add brand basics, using Reloom, create Reloom project, and do all these things. So again, each one of these tasks might probably take you like 15 to 20 minutes, right? But again, we're instead of tracking them as separate tasks, we're just having one big chunk saying we need to do the environment setup. All right, so these three things need to be done. As soon as you're done with all three of this, complete the task.
Nice.
So again, just just decreases the number of clicks that we have to do to report on the progress. Because I think, again, one of the biggest things that I've experienced myself is when we have a lot of tasks here and we have to like go and change the status for each one of them. Like, I done this one. This took me 5 minutes. This took me 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's basically the idea on how do we track the admin tasks here. Now, I know what we discussed last time is that along the way, as we're collecting information from the client, we also want to have a single source of truth inside ClickUp to store all the details. I know you have them as documents in the client space, like as a separate view. We can either keep it the same way and just have them, again, just can be a folder view here as a document, or it can be added as a separate document inside the project folder. So this way you can go inside the document, and this will have the structure that you showed me previously with like all the things and all the tables that you need to fill out. So again, either or can be done both ways or either ways.
I like it.
All right. So the last thing that I want to in this structure is basically, I didn't include this in the in my bullet points, but I forgot to mention about the Feedbucket revision. So I put that as I don't remember the last time you showed it to me. I think you had like all these tasks as part of the development list, or was it as part of the separate list?
Yeah, it was just bundled in development. Yeah.
Okay. So here I was just thinking, like, if we were to do the integration between, and again, that happens manually in the meantime, but if that integration has to be set up, it's nice to have a separate list where all the tasks are getting created, so it doesn't mess up with the structure that we put here in place. Yeah. So this way, again, having that separate list, obviously, again, can be assigned to a development person or whoever needs to take to take care of that. But again, having a separate list just I think makes it easier to understand where do we integrate this stuff, where do you link all the tasks, and where does Feedbucket create all the revisions. So
perfect.
Yeah, it's also, again, comes down to the statuses and custom fields, because we might need to have slightly separate statuses or maybe slightly separate custom fields for this specific revisions. We're going to discuss this a little bit later, but yeah, that's basically the thought process behind this.
Perfect.
All right, so let me, if that makes sense, let me go through one more thing, which is, again, looking at the things from the high-level perspective, because we not only want to see things up close in each of the projects, but what happens when we want to look at all the projects from the high level. So I think I mentioned from the kind of agency overview of all the projects that we're working on, this can be done either this way, when you have like just a Gantt view. We can also have like a board view, as I showed you previously, which shows you different websites for different stages. But that's and again, that's in the client space where we're tracking this kind of high-level deliverables for the website project and the phases. When it comes to having an overall overview of all the projects for web projects, again, if we go to the space level here, I think okay, I just put one list here, one view here, but what this does, and it can be kind of similar for the rest of them, what this does is it shows you all the web pages with the stages throughout all the projects that you have in this space. So you can see over here, again, it's again broken down by client custom field, which you currently have. I think you showed it to me previously. And again, this one, they can be all together, put all together in the same view. They can be broken down like this. That basically, again, shows you all the web pages per stage. So if you were to go and look through all the projects and what's going on, that would be the right place to come. You would just like see, all right, so for client 1, client 2, these are all the pages, this is where we're standing, and this is how far they are through the process.
Nice.
All right, so with that said, that's let me just see if I had anything else here. No. Okay, so let me go back here. And I wanted to ask, because again, I'll need your feedback. I wanted to ask, what do you think about the way we're tracking the website projects? Which option resonates more with you? Is it more tracking the website project together with all the phases, or is it just simply tracking the websites as separate tasks and then tracking phases in the project folder?
That's a really good question. Yeah, can we go through V1 and show on the client space side and then the agency web project side, just to see what they look like side by side?
Yeah.
And then do the same for V2 and just see both back to back.
Let's do this. Okay, so let's go through.
Just because there's a lot, so it'd be good to see them back to back and then get a really good understanding of both. Yeah.
So okay, so that's V1. Let me just save this. Okay, and then just go to spaces. Okay, so that's going to be the website pages, website phases. Okay, I'll just have, and at this point, I didn't set up the specific task types, which will make it easier to filter tasks. So for now, I'll just filter them by location.
Okay. Sounds good.
So yeah, we're gonna go phases 1, phases 2.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, so again, basically this one just shows you, the only difference really is that you have the website task itself in the Gantt view. So it shows you like the overall timeline, which can be like, the kickoff date, and the launch date. And then it shows you all the stages in between. With this version, when we track phases inside the project folders, this one looks kind of similar, but it doesn't have, again, that task that shows you the main project.
Okay, yeah.
But looks very similar, again.
Yeah, I like, I mean, I think I like having this view under the web project folder, or the space, I mean, because then I can just go to the web project space and I can see everything related to just the websites. So just that silo of our business.
Okay.
Because if it was in the client space, can we go back to that one?
Yeah.
I guess in the client space, we could just have a V1 project Gantt that would only be the website projects. So it'd only be that silo of the business as well then, hey?
So the downside here, which I was thinking about when we track when we track it this way, is we won't be able to have, just because the statuses for the phases are like quite simple, right? So just like in progress, done, or closed.
Yeah.
We won't be able to track the website. So if you look at this view here, you'll have to figure out which phase it is in based on the, let's say, color, right? In this case, or like what's the current date. While with this option, if we were to track just website projects, high level, you can just see the website project, what phase it is at. And also you can see, like, let's say the due date by when this phase should be completed or something like this. And then if you want to see, again, in more detail, you can go into the Gantt view, as you said, on the web project level and see it broken down by phase.
Yeah. I think I like this Gantt view under the web project space. Just to keep it all in, or to keep more website tasks or more website information, just the website space.
In one space,
yeah, just to keep it very siloed. I think I like that. Yeah,
makes sense. Okay, so if we remove the other version here, in this case, we're gonna see all our projects, website projects, from the client space like this, which is like very high level overview, right? And then we're saying if we want to look into the phases, then we're gonna go into this view, which will break down each project by phase.
Yeah, and then we can, so for here too, we could set the due dates, because these are all linked to tasks as well, if I remember right.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So each one of them is a separate task. Yeah, you can open this.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and then we can assign the due date. It's also, actually, I like this option more as well. The reason why is because when we have the website shown like this as a separate project, and I added a couple of custom fields here just to give you an idea of like the benefit of having this as a separate task, because we can basically store information about the project. We can say, who's the project owner, who's the developer, who's the designer, like when is the target launch date, what is the ClickUp project URL. And here, in addition to this, we can also add ClickUp, we can say project phases, or ClickUp project phases view, which is a link that when you click it, it takes you to this, and this example is just going to take you to the folder. But we can set it up so that it takes you to the page with the Gantt view. And you can clearly see what are all the phases. You can adjust them. Again, this is part of the, like, filling out this custom fields is going to be part of the admin or like preparation work or like onboarding work that's going to happen. So all these things need to be completed. Again, I added like staging URL, spec sheet URL, primary domain. Maybe you want to keep those things inside the website tasks. I know most of these things are in the spec sheet, for the web, or like the website. I don't remember exactly how you call it. Is it the spec sheet, right?
Spec sheet, yeah.
Yeah, the spec sheet. So maybe we can remove them from the custom fields, just have them in the spec sheet. And in terms of like keeping information under inside the same place, here what happens is, again, you created a spec sheet and you can link it right in the task, so that every time someone has a question, they go to the website project task, they look through the custom fields, they find the spec sheet, they open the spec sheet. So it doesn't become this kind of a, where do we put that document, you know? You just have them all under the same task, which becomes this kind of big umbrella for all the work happening. All right, cool. So perfect. So that sounds good. So in this case, let's move on with the web project. So as I said, for the client, just let me know if any other questions. But for the client space, again, we're gonna have our client folder, which we currently have. The only thing is which changes is we're adding a website development list in there. And again, basically what this does is it kind of gives us structure for all the future, or like for all the other services that we're going to have. As I said, it's going to be SEO, it's going to be social media, it can be all the same thing stored the same way as website development.
Yes.
And then again, maybe even having the same concept of just storing the high level deliverables inside this client space. And then when it comes to like detailed breakdown of the project, we have a separate space per service that's going to be broken down like this.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so in this structure, so then we come to the second question, which is which one makes more sense for the phases? Does it make more sense to track phases separately from the admin tasks, or have them all together grouped like this?
I guess I'll ask, from your experience building out so many different ClickUp spaces and organizational structures, etc., what do you recommend would have the best success and adoption from our team, just based on your experience, for what you've done in the past?
Right. So yeah, I feel like for me, obviously the fewer tasks the better, because the one of the biggest things is, again, as we see with the current version, right, is that like we have too many tasks and we just don't update them, and we don't I can actually change the statuses. So I like kind of how clean it looks here, because this way you just have like, you know, one phase for one task, have the due date set up, you can look them see them in the Gantt view. But at the same time, it feels like we're going to be doing the work twice, because we still want to group admin tasks kind of in bigger buckets. So this project phases become those buckets, and I would just have them in the same list. So this list becomes not only the timeline for the project, it also becomes the list for all the admin tasks that need to happen throughout these phases, right? And I don't think I have the right names here, because I just kind of again put them based on the discussion we had. So you can see like the project phases are slightly different from the phases I have here, but again, we can adjust that. But the point is, for each of these phases, I would probably go with V2. For each of these phases, we can have, again, this big chunks of work separated as subtasks. And for each of these big chunks of work, we can just have a checklist inside the task that's going to walk us through what needs to get completed to get this done. Something like this.
Yeah, I like that.
All right. So let me then do it this way. I'm going to grab this thing, just so that we can see how that looks. Grab this thing. And then over here in the Gantt view, so all right, I'm just gonna yeah, so this one again is just like, I didn't even change the due dates here, but again, those probably will be different for different projects. But this is how that looks, the previous view that we looked at for the web projects. Again, we can expand. I don't think it's necessary to expand and see every single like task inside that phase. Again, we can just keep that as just a high level phase overview. But then again, each of these admin tasks can be just part of will be a subtask here. So in this case, the structure for the project folder, and again, it's kind of the new pieces really are the website pages, tracking them as separate tasks, and then the Feedbucket revisions having a separate list for these things. When it comes to this admin tasks, that's kind of the same thing that we had previously, just put into the same list. So
yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
it's very clean. Yeah.
All right. That sounds good. So yeah, because I was looking at that setup from I was looking at that template, and I watched the videos explaining like how that setup works and how to track phases for all the projects. And again, the way they did it is they had separate tasks that were what's this type? That were milestones.
Okay.
And then they were just showing these milestones on the space level. And basically, by looking at those milestones, you kind of figure out which phase you're currently in. But again, it was a little bit weird. I think having like a task going through different stages makes more sense than having like a task that represents a separate stage, which is in progress or not. So again, that's kind of the difference. Okay, so let me know if any questions here. If that makes sense, again, if any concerns, maybe things that do not make sense.